If you were put on a hit list by a small-town real estate mogul, what would you do? Dalton is an ex-UFC fighter who gets hired to be a bouncer at a cozy tavern in the middle of nowhere. Once he wins the hearts and minds of the locals, he finds out there's one in particular he should have been worried about all along. I'm gonna break down the mistakes made, what you should do, and how to beat Conor McGregor in Roadhouse.
All right, we got a superhero here.
We start out following Dalton, our hooded Chad Gyllenhaal here, who reveals his jacked physique, trying to throw down with Post Malone in some weird underground illegal fighting ring. In the intro to the movie, we get treated to Posty roughing up 6 dudes in a row, most of them jacked, heavier than him, and at least 4 or 5 inches taller than him too. Yet, he refuses to fight Dalton, straight up freaks out at the mere sight of him.
You know I'll fight any fucking one of your fucking. Here's your money.
Which means Dalton gets paid a wad of cash for just showing up. That's awesome, but you could easily figure, judging by the looks of this place, it won't be that easy.
You just lost me $500.
Or it is that easy. I mean, you just got knifed and still scared the dude away. Pretty sure that wouldn't be how it goes in real life, but okay then. Dalton's just so much of a Chad that it defies biology.
I own a roadhouse out in the Florida Keys.
While Dalton's giving himself duct tape first aid, Frankie walks over and introduces herself as the owner of a bar out in Florida. It's a piece of history and a good bar where locals come to unwind. But recently, it's been crowded by the wrong kind of patrons, ruining the vibes for everyone. She'll pay Dalton $5 grand a week plus accommodation if he can come kick people out and break the skulls of deserving troublemakers. Doesn't seem like the worst deal for someone in his situation. I mean, you did get shanked over $500. May as well make 20 grand going pro. Despite the tempting offer, Dalton refuses, preferring instead to self-delete via train after being told to leave a gas station parking lot. Except at the last second, he regrets the decision, managing to start the car and move it a couple inches forward just as the train hits the car. This barely saves his life, but wrecks his ride, and therefore makes him homeless at the same time. After that fun experience, he obviously feels different about spending his days in sunny Florida instead, so he takes Frankie up on her offer. Can't say I blame him. It looks beautiful out there, and he even gets a welcoming committee.
It kind of sounds like the plot to a Western.
You seem a bit surprised to hear what he came here to do.
He's here to work at the Roadhouse.
He doesn't take the opportunity here, but like I always suggest at the start of any new adventures, gather information. You can see Steven's face dropping here once Charlie says Dalton's working at the Roadhouse. They clearly know something that we don't.
Roadhouse.
He makes it to his destination, which looks like an older, less typical tavern/restaurant right by the beach. Honestly, it looks awesome out there. This movie's doing its job well, advertising for Florida and all that. He thinks he's hit the jackpot, calling this place peaceful. That's only because he doesn't know they mostly come out at night. Mostly.
You don't have to be a king.
They've got live music, great drinks, and angry biker gangs the staff seems to hate with a passion. It's not hard to see why.
Clean up. Aisle 4.
The first thing these people do upon entering is break stuff, harass the staff, and even intimidate an innocent waitress. Just overall, not cool behavior, which Chad Dalton doesn't stand for. They won't go outside the easy way, so Dalton baits them outside instead by saying he's gonna go with their bikes. Once outside, he delivers the most embarrassing form of street justice ever.
Before we start, do you have insurance? Ooh, I just slapped you. Are you alright? He's got knee damage, possibly a dislocation.
Now, realistically, 5-1 is next to impossible to beat in real life, mostly because they won't come at you one at a time. If that's real life, especially with how messy bar fights tend to get, he'd just be held down by one dude while the others repeatedly beat his ass in turns. I'm not gonna spend an overwhelming amount of time debating the realism of fights, at least not too much, since, well, this is a remake of the 1989 original Roadhouse movie starring Patrick Patrick Swayze, and realism wasn't ever really the main focus of this movie's universe to begin with. I wouldn't be doing what is otherwise a masterpiece justice by fixating on the stage fighting, but I will definitely call out blatant movie BS which negates common sense or reality.
Hey,
At the hospital, Dalton's introduced to Ellie, a nurse impressed with his work.
think you'd care about being a rage-filled cat who likes to hurt people for fun.
She hates his type, but she quickly finds out he's not like the rest of them. He doesn't notice during the flirty medical treatment that he's being monitored. The bad guys clearly seem to agree that he's not like the others. Considering Ellie seems to deal with these types regularly, I think it would definitely be worth asking her what her regular looks like.
Yep, that's him. That's the guy.
Dalton ponders the matters of the philosophical mind instead.
Why is it called the Roadhouse? Isn't Roadhouse one word?
Roadhouse.
We finally get treated to some of Dalton's backstory while he's having one of those boat dreams. You see, our bouncer wasn't just any type of fighter. He was an ex-UFC fighter.
We've been through a lot of you guys.
As Laura, the bartender, wakes him up to bring him some grub, we also learn that every single bouncer they've had has pretty much quit within days of starting the job. Right, so that gives us some of the bar's backstory, but I can't help but feel like this violence was sudden onset, meaning it likely wasn't that violent, say 10 years ago. Something recent must have happened to trigger all this violence.
Good morning, Dalton.
Dalton again does not ask about the previous bouncers. He ventures to the bookstore instead. He needs internet access, not having a phone and all. As he walks toward the store, he notices everyone's addressing him by name. Fame went quick. I mean, not hard to see why. An ex-UFC fighter winning a fight 1-5 at a local bar is pretty newsworthy around these parts, I'd imagine. Speaking of which, he also sees his victims from the night before, harassing the owners of the local liquor store in the same lot. Seems like that's kind of their thing. We also hear that cops don't care about any of this, which is crazy, and it looks like violent assaults are being committed non-stop. We should probably start asking questions as to why that is. Pretty sure cops should care about this kind of stuff. Dalton still doesn't ask any questions, though.
Because if you're here, that means you're not somewhere else.
We cut to a rich douchebag on a yacht, Mr. Brand, who has some super secret plans for the Roadhouse. The plans turn out to be to level it and build an enormous resort there. Clearly this dude has some kind of god complex, seeing as he's getting mad at his staff over the movement of the ocean on a yacht. So yeah, this is our main unimpressive bad guy.
Yo, what the kind of music is this?
The next day at the Roadhouse, some unruly patrons are harassing band. Dalton's trying to teach his young colleague Billy a thing or two about fighting, so he tells him to approach the troublemaker whom he knows is packing a knife.
What now, bitch?
Dalton tells Billy to just take a big step back when he pulls out his knife and pop him in the face. Because that's bound to go well. Okay, I'm not gonna call out unrealistic fighting BS too much, like I promised, but I do feel like I need to mention for any nerd that may ever find himself staring at the other end of a knife. Do not try to go for someone empty-handed and unarmored if they have a knife. You're far more likely to just be stabbed than to successfully disarm the guy like Billy actually does here. Now, in a realistic scenario, you also should just call the cops if you suspect someone's about to use a concealed weapon in your establishment on another patron or your staff. Pretty straightforward. How is everyone this casual about a dude swinging a knife with lethal intent at your young, inexperienced bouncer? If you know he's packing and likely to strike with a deadly weapon, you should not send the kid in with fists. If it's a gun-friendly, stand-your-ground state, which Florida is, why not just prep your draw and shoot the knife-wielding lunatic the second he pulls the knife with intent to use it? Florida's stand-your-ground law allows people to use deadly force without retreating in public. Hell, it's even legal to just draw on him and threaten deadly force if you're not too keen on pulling trig. If you reasonably believe that threatening to use such force is necessary to prevent imminent death or great bodily harm to himself or herself or another, or to prevent the imminent commission of a forcible felony. Bare minimum, have your bouncers carry tasers or pepper spray. Literally anything besides bare knuckles versus whatever whatever they have. This movie's premise pretty much gets nuked by one dude with a Glock in any of the troublemaker scenes, or if the bad guys just murdered Frankie at night when she's alone, but we'll just ignore that for now.
Hey, you're Reef, right?
Yeah.
Aside from Billy, Dalton also recruits Reef into his security team, seeing as he also enjoys boxing. Not a bad idea, to be honest. You coach the rookies, gaining you reliable backup while also improving their skills. We get a montage of the rookies doing Dalton's job for him. Okay, I mean, I guess Frankie's happy that the job got done somehow, but I do find it kind of funny that Dalton got paid 20 grand for this, while they probably got paid minimum wage. Classic supervisor. As Dalton himself throws out the one easy guy that isn't actually violent, the biker gang from earlier just sort of stands there revving their stationary bikes before littering and driving off. Yeah, kind of like that, but remember, they're supposed to be stereotypical. You also finally get a bit of a better glimpse into what went wrong in Dalton's UFC career. Basically, dude was great at the fighting stuff, but eventually, his ego started writing checks his body couldn't cash. His arrogance cost him the game. He's also haunted by this, but it's kept vague on purpose. He goes to sample the local cuisine when he runs into Ellie again, who, on top of pronunciation courses, which a lot of you nerds after my La Llorona video suggested I employ as well, also gives Dalton the rundown on how things truly work down here. It's all about family ties. It pretty much sounds like how people would describe gangster or mob activity in a small community in Italy.
Even the cops aren't always as helpful as they should be.
She even says the cops aren't reliable whatsoever because even they aren't above all those family ties and loyalty games. So sounds to me like just from that alone, we should at least get a small, basic, concealable handgun. At least one. I'm dumbfounded with how much violence this tavern sees on a regular basis that nobody, not staff nor regular patrons who just don't want to get shaken down every evening, have decided to finally start carrying. Especially if you know the police would even go as far as to cover up your murder if it came down to it. You can't tell me every single one of these people in this story are convicted felons that cannot purchase firearms legally in the state of Florida, or that none of them ever legitimately consider doing so yet, dealing with these thugs all the time. Even Charlie came out of the shop earlier with an aluminum bat for protection. The actual liquor store owner got assaulted by the looks of it and didn't have a shotgun under the counter or anything to protect himself with whatsoever. I said I wouldn't call out the fights for lack of realism, but I never said I wouldn't call out the unrealistic lack of guns in this town. Though part of me believes that access to firearms would just result in a ton of shootouts instead of brawls, seeing what these degenerates get themselves into on apparently a nightly basis. My point gets proven several times over when Dalton walks back from the bar to his boathouse down by the marina. A truck tries to run him over, missing at the last second as Dalton jumps out of the way. To try and finish the job, the truck then reverses into Dalton, even ramming the truck straight through the concrete barrier on the highway. Dalton conveniently manages to jump up from the ground into the bed of the truck just in time as it's about to hit him at like 30 miles an hour. He also has the common sense to know that he needs to create distance between him and his attackers, so he jumps off the truck. Once in the water, he also manages to dodge the truck itself, plunging into the sea a few moments later, before he just swims ashore and finishes his walk home, I guess. Seriously though, if an experience like this doesn't have you racing to a nearby gun store, I'm not sure what to tell you.
You're a real pain in my.
Unfortunately, Del does believe in guns and is waiting for him at the boathouse. It is really not Dalton's night. Good thing that Gyllenhaal Chadliness can't even be defeated by a 12-gauge wielding goon, although that's mostly due to the fact that nobody in this movie ever uses their ranged weapon from a distance. Dalton approaches Del and gets within grabbing range, with zero counterplay from Del in this case, as he cornered himself in the boathouse. Dalton gets his hands on the barrel, turning the tables. He manages to throw Del out of the window and into the water surrounding the marina.
Well, that was stupid.
Stupidly, Dalton actually throws him the shotgun instead of killing him with it, which Dell even calls out as stupid, saying he'll just go back for it now instead. I mean, Dalton was well within his rights to use this dumb gun against him. This is about as imminent and deadly as it gets, when a goon points a 12 gauge at your skull from like 10 feet away in your own houseboat. For someone so violently gifted, Dalton has a very pacifist attitude against those who constantly keep trying to end his life. Fortunately, our scaly, amphibious guard dog is more than happy to do our dirty work for us. The alligator Frankie warned us about earlier gets a hold of Dell without even breaking a sweat. Dalton, from the good of his heart, does try to help Dell, but it's no use once the death roll begins. According to wildlife organizations and gator experts, the only thing you can do in such a situation is roll with it, literally, while going for the animal's eyes and snout. The rolling of an alligator is meant to incapacitate and dismember prey. If you can follow the movements without, well, dying instantly, you may have a chance, due to how much energy this requires from the gator.
Deliveries by boat to the back of the roadhouse, and
No, it's.
you're
The next morning, the cops dispose of the body. Dalton goes into detective mode with Charlie instead, though, seeing as she's his go-to for internet access now. He tries to figure out what Brandt's guys would want with a roadhouse, but he can't make sense of it. Why not just ask Frankie? She should know, given she's on a wealthy businessman's radar now.
Kind of sounding more like a mystery western instead of a straight up shooting western.
I mean, it was never a shooting western without guns, even though it was perfectly warranted. Detective western? I don't know. This doesn't feel like very brainy detective work, if I'm honest.
Get in the car. Boss wants to have a word with you.
As he walks outside, an armed goon tries to force Dalton into a truck to meet with Brandt, but Dalton's not too impressed. Can't say I am either. They both make dumb mistakes here, though. Dalton makes the mistake of still not having a gun, and probably not purchasing one after this encounter, even though he's now getting clear indications of the bad guys getting bold enough to start using them. Smooth brain goon over here makes the mistake of letting Dalton walk within grabbing range, while making a speech about his gun not being if he breaks his index finger and thumb, which would require him to be within grabbing range. Resulting in Dalton being in grabbing range and breaking his index finger and thumb when he tries to draw within melee range of Dalton like a moron. Brandt, piece of advice, pay for better goons. Dalton, don't give the goon back his gun, you absolute beautiful moron. The other guy beside him could still pick it up and shoot you as you walk away. What's he gonna do anyways if he keep his gun? Go down to the police station, report the gun he used for his day job as a mob enforcer as stolen? This right here was your ticket to firearm ownership at the cost of $0. And within reach even if Dalton has a record. What's even dumber, it is bordering on impressive levels of stupidity. He openly invites the goon's boss to the roadhouse. This means your unarmed staff and your unarmed security team are all going to now need to very quickly shift their expectations from violent drunks to gun-wielding gangsters. This was likely to happen sooner rather than later, but you've just expedited that timeline for sure. In case you didn't know, Dalton, there's quite a difference between fists and gunpowder.
just don't get why he was so focused on the roadhouse.
Back at the roadhouse, Dalton finally talks to Frankie, who basically tells him not to worry about why these thugs are so hyper-fixated on her bar, and not to lose any sleep over it. I mean, yeah, that's kind of easy to say when it's not your house they were waiting in with a shotgun.
Broke your fingers. Yeah, when he took my gun.
We then cut back over to Brandt, who's less than pleased with the outcome with his goon getting his fingers broken, and him being unable to force Dalton into a confrontation. We see a model that resembles his dream, as Brandt calls it, that this whole thing is just about a waterfront resort. The roadhouse is the one place that they can't buy out. I find that kind of hard to believe. Let's be real here for a second. These guys are supposedly ballin' with big bucks, so there's either a gross failure to negotiate at play here, or Frankie has the integrity of a literal saint. Brandt here might think something ludicrous like, say, $20 million is a ridiculous amount to put down for a bar, which you're gonna level anyway. My counter to that is simple. You're willing to intimidate, assault, even kill people over it, likely spending thousands upon thousands anyway in bribes and all sorts of other dumb shit to associated with running your half-baked, wannabe cartel criminal empire here. Why wouldn't you just remove the last holdouts with a sum of cash so ludicrous they couldn't say no? You can even throw in a statue to honor her uncle's integrity and loyalty to the community or something. Maybe even let her run the internal bar of his resort so that her locals keep coming and provide repeat business to the resort's bar. With all of those efforts combined, I find it kind of hard to believe that she'd still say no. That way you could build things faster, get operating faster, and ultimately produce profits faster. If she still says no to all of that, then I wish I had that level of integrity. And Frankie, what the hell do you stand to gain by not telling Dalton what I presume Brandt had previously already approached you about? He just got held up at gunpoint in his home over this very topic. Don't you think that he at least deserves to know why that is? It's honestly not that big a deal either. Why wouldn't you just tell him? Instead, Dalton's left to wonder and remain vulnerable in the event of things escalating, such as, say, Brandt's incarcerated kingpin father calling in some really bad people to murder Dalton. Meet Knox, played by Conor McGregor, the real-life legendary UFC champion who was the first to ever hold championship titles in 2 different weight classes. Right off the bat, the movie makes a point of showing you just how unhinged and dangerous this dude truly is. He's out in Italy, and not only does he just strut around town naked after getting caught doing a local's wife, he straight up assaults a random market shopper and steals his clothes. Knox then sets the entire place on fire for whatever reason supposed to make sense here. So yeah, total psycho.
Come on!
Meanwhile, Dalton still isn't arming up. He'd rather go boating around with Ellie. Not that I'm saying it doesn't look fun as hell, and, you know, but you've got bigger issues to worry about, dude. At least it sets up the plot. Knox has now made it to Glass Key as well, where he wastes no time putting Brandt in his place, and also showing him that he's no longer in control.
I got a message for you from your father.
I'm the captain now.
Sir Dalton.
Dalton gets picked up by the sheriff's boys pretty much instantly upon returning to his boathouse. It's a tricky one. Realistically, they don't have a warrant out for your arrest or anything. You can simply ask whether or not you're under arrest. Once they confirm you're not, you're free to go. It is that simple. In theory. Dalton agrees for that very same reason. He knows they're corrupt as meaning saying no to them isn't exactly bound to go any better. I also highly doubt that they'd care for the law much in that situation, judging by their moral compasses. You're basically in a lose-lose situation here, where the cops are the bad guys taking you to a secondary location. For all you know, this is an execution play. But short of running and just hoping the deputies don't shoot you, there's not much that Dalton can do here. He should, however, have been preparing for an encounter of this nature already though. It only stands to reason if the cops are in on it that they'd use this whole Gator self-defense case as a way to get Dalton down to the station for some questions.
Elwood.
Luckily for Dalton, this is nothing but an intimidation play by the town sheriff, a guy called Big Dick. Yeah, can't blame Dalton for not wanting to use that name. So this clown basically just tells Dalton he needs to leave town and then kicks the shit out of him with his deputies. I seriously struggle to understand the movie's logic here. The bouncer is the one being hit with all the wannabe mafia intimidation tactics. Given the connections within the police force, I'm surprised nobody's approached Frankie yet with a whole "what a lovely bar, it'd be a shame if something happened to it" speech, especially since they could also just as easily kill Frankie. They've got no reason to assume anyone else, even Dalton getting paid 20 grand for this job, would be willing to risk their lives for the bar. Not to mention, they can likely outbid Frankie pretty easily and just buy Dalton. They could also force Frankie into a car ride, just like with Dalton here. Or they could burn down the bar overnight and purposely mess with the investigation. Hell, they could even shank and bury Frankie right there on her own plot of land and then build the resort on top of her, and nobody would be none the wiser. Instead, they just direct all their focus and attention to a bouncer who, as of yet, doesn't have a personal stake in this story, just as it looks like it's lights out for Dalton here. Ellie comes in for the rescue, along with a mean slap across Big Appendage's face, who turns out to be her father. Really hope she doesn't call him Big either. She gets Dalton out of there, but he's most certainly marked now. tricky situation. Even packing heat is not going to help you against people who can just kill you with the law on their side by default. Sure, the investigation will happen someday, but by then Dalton would be dead several times over. Let's pause here for a second. What are Dalton's options aside from basically purchasing an operator tier loadout and getting ready for the mother of all John Wick reenactments? Well, leaving is one option. Sucks to admit defeat, but seriously, he's already made some cash. Why die for this place? You're from Montana, dude. You could approach the county district attorney for help dealing with a corrupt sheriff abusing his authority over his jurisdiction. Failing that, you could inform the state attorney general instead, basically saying the previous, plus that the county DA wasn't helpful to your situation. If all else fails, there's always the FBI to conduct an investigation into the corruption at play here. In any case, it's pretty clear that Dalton is against the odds non-stop if he stays here. I still seriously think, just for Knox alone, a Glock 19 will save him at least some of the trouble he's up against here.
What are we talking about? I'm curious, actually, to hear what you were going to tell her.
That evening, Brandt shows up in a flashy pink suit to meet Dalton. He doesn't try to threaten or intimidate him. None of that logical stuff. No, he came to this bar, unarmed, without a security detail at his side, to ask Dalton why he's still interested in fighting after he killed someone previously. That's right, his UFC ego problem eventually led to him killing a man in the ring, which forced him out of the game for good. That's dark and all, but I don't understand how that gave Brandt confidence to approach this guy alone. If anything, given your associates tried to end his life today and yesterday, you could have just as easily expected Dalton would be ready to take his second life, now that you've given a million reasons to do so. This was just straight up plot movie BS for a good ol'
Roadhouse callback. Been a while since I've been clubbing.
And to finally justify Knox getting let off the leash to start getting seriously violent, which doesn't take long to happen once he makes it inside, Dalton lets his team take care of business, heavily underestimating Knox at first. Knox easily fights off the bar security team and all the patrons that try to help them out, not even flinching when Reef hooks him in the face. This incites a good old Knox really wants to draw out Dalton for a fight. Dalton's just about had enough, so he finally indulges these thugs. Mano a mano. Gyllenhaal versus McGregor.
You know I got sent here special, just for you.
Man, with the constant damage done to, well, everything in this bar, I'm kind of surprised they even got 20 grand to pay Dalton at all, after those continuous repair bills. State police troopers called in by Ellie eventually end things at the Roadhouse. Dalton's really done with this entire story though, so he's just walking away. He's relatively unfazed. Instead of walking around with a concussion, like I allude to in my video, your heroes will get brain damage, he packs up to leave when Frankie basically calls him a bitch.
Are you really that afraid?
I mean, Frankie, what do you expect? Dude's been nearly killed a lot of times in the span of a few weeks. You also hid all the info from him that he was looking for. Not to mention, your situation clearly needs a private security team with access to firearms, not one dude with just his fists. You can't seriously be butthurt that Dalton's not willing to lay down his life for 20 grand. This is a toxic work environment if I've ever seen one. Hope the Roadhouse doesn't have a Glassdoor page. Dalton's about to leave town for good when he realizes that Charlie and Steven have been hurt, and their bookstore is set on fire. This was done as a message to him, once again proving that the bad guys are misdirecting their efforts. Obviously, Dalton just can't let that slide, and realizes that beyond the drama with this place of employment, it's all about the people, so he turns back.
Yeah, well, I walked from the bookstore.
This time, it's him walking into the bad guy's hideout while making his intentions super clear. Except, he's outnumbered like 30-1, and he's still totally unarmed. Rolling up in there with an SBR, I can understand. This, however, don't know, Dalton. I hope you have good insurance for this one. Not that it matters, because literally everyone in this movie is all about letting people get within grabbing range of them, or in this case, throat punching range.
Roadhouse callback.
Dalton makes it clear that he was never scared of these clowns. He was scared of what he would do to them when pushed past his limits. Cool speech. Kinda wasted on a dead guy though.
Wow, he looks heavy. It turns out these guys, not as nice as I thought they were.
He runs into Mo, aka my favorite character in this movie. Mo pretty much clues Dalton in on basically everything. Great, so at 5 a.m., you could ambush these guys with a rifle and disappear into the night. Especially since, as far as everyone knows, you were leaving town already. I think the alibi is kind of baked into the situation here. Come 5 a.m., Dalton manages to infiltrate an active drop site for cash, and manages to catch a lone sheriff's deputy off guard. It seems Dalton's finally realized that guns are cool.
Oh, hey, you're awake.
You're finally awake.
When the deputy wakes up, Dalton pops the corpse with the guy's pistol.
I'll tell him it was you.
Judging by his reaction, you're not gonna be around to tell anybody anything.
A real whack can really knock the short-term memory out of you.
His short-term memory loss info isn't totally off, but it's never a guarantee that the recipients will lose their memories, unless you keep hitting the deputy past the point of concussion until he's, well, dead.
Hello, this is Coast Guard Chief Petty Officer William.
Dalton then calls the Coast Guard. I mean, I guess that's one way to circumvent the whole corrupt police system, but I don't understand why he doesn't just call the state police. They literally ended the altercation the other day with their mere presence. If you'd taken all of 5 seconds to talk to Ellie, you'd also know that they're able to be of assistance here, and that she has connections within the state police force. Whatever. Let's assume the Coast Guard works too, I guess.
I just want to talk.
Back at the boathouse, Big Appendage shows up just as Dalton's going full insurgent mode and says they've kidnapped Ellie because of the money that Dalton took.
You were talking some about short-term memory.
Told you. Still, that doesn't make the slightest bit of sense. Why would they take Ellie to get to Dalton? Dalton barely knows Ellie. They've kissed like once. I'm guessing this is a trap, especially if her dad's in on this whole thing. I'd be a lot less likely to trust the situation.
Oh, that's my boat, buddy. Go ahead.
Dalton instead decides to take the sheriff for his word and combine that stupidity with stealing the boat that Ellie borrowed earlier from another cop before meeting them all at Brant's yacht with zero backup. Okay, I guess he truly learned nothing from his time at Glass Key so far, except it's all a ruse and Ellie isn't there at all. But wait, apparently Dalton saw all this coming.
There's no kidnapping, dumb.
Oh, double cross.
Which makes it even dumber that you're here unarmed. Except...
Did kind of take her.
What?
Ooh, another double cross.
What the hell am I watching? Dalton clearly finds this entertaining, as I do.
Do not let that maniac on the boat.
And as if this situation isn't volatile enough, here comes Knox to add to the party's guest list. As they're all distracted, Dalton sets off explosives in his now IED boat, blowing up part of the yacht as well and causing it to take on water. He goes looking for Ellie, who's already working on an escape strategy when he reaches her. The boat starts sinking just as they manage to crawl out of the yacht's windows. Arrogantly, the one lone goon tries to take on Dalton, who didn't even flinch when he got punched at full force in the face by that same guy earlier. Ellie makes it onto Brant's boat amidst the chaos, who plans to use it to destroy the roadhouse. Knox, meanwhile, keeps trying to hit and run Dalton with a motorized Zodiac until he dodges it and climbs aboard.
Our own little octagon.
Who taught you shapes?
It's this. This right here is the quality writing that I watch these kind of movies for. Dalton manages to briefly get control of the Zodiac, ramming it into Brant's boat before jumping into it, unscathed somehow. Ellie keeps resisting against Brant, who's alone now versus the two of them, before he finally manages to ram the roadhouse with his boat anyway, though it doesn't do all that much damage. This ain't over yet though. Knox didn't die, and he's just pissed off now. He swims over to the nearby bridge, climbs up, and casually carjacks a random passing truck. Maybe I'm a dick, but if a random soaking wet, ripped, dangerous looking dude tried to stop my car, I'd just drive around him and keep going. Especially if you could still see the fireball from the yacht in the distance as the driver here, which realistically, you would. Back at the bar, Brant tries to ambush Dalton with a fishing spear, because even this dumbass didn't think to arm up, even having direct and frequent access to firearms because of what he does.
Fishing spear.
Even Dalton's insulted. Just as he begins to bring down the mother of all beatdowns, Knox rams his truck straight through the front door and gives us the showdown that we've been waiting for. was pretty sick, especially having an actual UFC champion as the antagonist. They get some decent hits on each other, repeatedly put each other in various chokeholds, arm and leg bars. There's even a clean boxing sequence mixed into this fight. Eventually, Knox gets sick of playing and stabs Dalton with a piece of broken wood, successfully getting Dalton on the ground, looking defeated. Branch tries to Palpatine Knox into finishing the job. Well, that didn't go as planned. To be honest, you could have seen this coming, dude. You command all of zero respect, and this guy made that clear from the very first interaction. I do wonder if Knox's boss will take any offense to his son being murdered by him, though. Probably not. Anyway, back to the important characters. Just as Knox goes for the finisher, Dalton regains his composure to the tune of some badass Metallica, and Uno reverses Knox with his own wooden shanks, repeatedly and hard. Dalton, however, does not finish the job either once he sees Ellie approaching with that signature look of disappointment. Yeah, not like those guys kidnapped you and left you down in a locked cabin to drown. The sheriff finally makes his way to the scene as well.
It's time for you to go, Dalton.
Fortunately, for saving his daughter, he agrees to cover for Dalton if he GTFOs immediately, seeing as he did just fulfill the purpose of why he was there in the first place, particularly with Brant's entire crew now dead or incarcerated. I see this as an absolute win. So does Dalton, as he obliges and walks away.
It's fixable. This is
Fixable.
The next day, the cleanup begins pretty much immediately. They're oddly optimistic, considering the damage, but fair point. The bad guys are gone, and this is actually fixable. At the bus stop, Dalton finally departs back to Montana from Glass Key, saying his goodbyes to Charlie and Steven, but not before making sure he at least improves their situation a little bit. The movie ends, followed by a post-credits scene of Knox assaulting the hospital staff as he wakes. Of our original protagonists, all have actually managed to survive the movie by default, because Roadhouse. Still, we could have significantly improved the efficiency of our impromptu counter-narco-terrorism operation with the help of some 300 Blackout, or at least some 9mm. Likewise, the bad guys could have been more efficient, and they targeted the right person from the get-go, or simply burned down the Roadhouse. Dalton would have never even been called to Florida in the first place. For all these reasons, I think the Roadhouse was beaten. Moral of the story, gun beat fist.